Greetings, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about a Ka-Bar. This is the Ka-Bar Rigger's Knife. So let's take the things out of the sheath. Now obviously this is not in the best of shape. I picked this up at a yard sale for $5. So you can see that it does in fact need a little love. And I need to clean this up and probably treat it. I actually don't have, and this is probably stainless steel. If it isn't, that would be stunning because it's a rigging knife and it's supposed to be used on a ship, but I don't know. It's very old and it wasn't cared for, so I couldn't tell you. Though this is a nice marlin spike. It really is. It's a nice, comes to a nice point. It isn't too sharp, but that definitely is going to get into some rigging, to some rope to help you take things apart. It has a nice heft to it. Speaking of heft, what the heck? I'm here. What do we got? What do we have for heft? So the spike weighs 48 grams. Sheath weighs 51. And the knife weighs 155. So what do we have total? 254 grams. So that's not a light load. But if you're going to be carrying a rigging knife, that's something that you're really probably not going to be too concerned with. Particularly if you want a fixed blade rigging knife, because this has a really nice design. And one of the things I like about it is that handle. It comes to a swell like that. It comes out, it flares like that. And that really fills your hand well, and it gives you a nice confident grip. Obviously it is because it's a rigging knife, this is a Wharncliffe design. Or actually probably more properly called a sheep's foot design. And again, it's so edge. I haven't done anything to it since I got it. But it says Ka-Bar stainless, and I'd never seen a Ka-Bar like this at the yard sale. I'm like, this is a Ka-Bar? So I picked it up immediately. It's got a nice wedge here on the blade, and it comes down, and that's a nice thick. You're not going to have to worry about this point breaking at any point on you in the future. I don't know what this is. Kind of wood this is. It's pin construction. Obviously a nice big lanyard hole. You could easily get 550 paracord. Though when this was designed, I think that 550 paracord was probably not a very common thing outside of the paratrooper corps. This is something I would actually contemplate carrying. Not in this sheath, because this sheath is in horrible condition. And I gotta be honest, I don't need to carry a marlin spike. Not only do I not need a marlin spike, but I'm not a ninja and I don't need a throwing spike either. But this is definitely something that I might consider as a carrying knife because it's not too huge. It really does feel good in the hand. There's no jimping on this thing. This guard here, which is brass, does afford a little bit of stop, but not much. But you're not going to be using this as combat weapon. This is a tool, and it's really meant for cutting and manipulating rope, but because of that sheep's foot design, it also lends itself to very useful daily cutting tasks. And the reason I say that, and the reason I love the Wharncliffe or the flat or sheep's foot or scram sack design, depending on how you want to talk about it, is because of this edge. Because when you're cutting something and you cut here and you draw it, you're engaging that entire blade. You're using all of it. Now you could say when you have an inward curving blade, you're doing the same thing, and you are correct. But the disadvantage to an inward curving blade is sharpening it is much more difficult. Because when you're using a blade that has like more of a traditional belly to it, you're losing energy here. Even though if you're rotating, you're not getting the same amount of energy on that, which is useful. That belly is useful for skinning and things like that, but I don't do that. I've never skinned anything in my life. I am likely to never skin anything in my life. So I like the idea of having a knife that lets me to engage evenly all the way across the blade while I'm cutting something. Hey, you can see my camera. So obviously it needs to be cleaned up, and it needs to be a new sheath, which is possibly a crafting project I'm going to undertake in the near future. I don't have any practice sewing leather, zero practice sewing leather. So I was wondering, can I put together a sheath that meets my needs through the use of glue and rivets? So I need to look into that. because if I can achieve that end, because I know how to use rivets, though I need to get myself a supply of two-part rivets. Anyone out there knows a good supply of two-part rivets, tell me. So I may actually put together a sheath that comes up to like a nice deep dump sheath, and I'd put a lanyard on here so I can help draw it out. Not a huge lanyard, probably just put a loop and a bead on it or something like that. I need to get some beads that are big enough that I can fit paracord through them though. So this is a nice design. I find it very attractive. I didn't know it existed. It was a surprise when I found it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's a Ka-Bars design I've never seen. And that doesn't happen every day that I encounter a knife design I've never seen. So anyone out there who's ever had any practical use of this knife, anyone who does any sailing, if you've done rigging, I'd like to know about how is this stand up against more traditional folding rigging knives. Did you find having a fixed blade version better, or did you find the additional weight was not worth the utility of having the fixed blade? Because this is going to be considerably heavier than a folding knife. This is probably this rig right here with the sheath and everything is probably weighs twice what you would for a folding knife. So that's going to be a make or break for some folks. And I don't know. Again, I'm not sailing. I've never had to do any rigging, so I couldn't tell you whether this is worth it or not. So anyone out there who can tell me, I would love to know. But overall, it's a nice design. I really find this aesthetically pleasing, and it's a Ka-Bar model I've never encountered before.